Welcome everyone to the online build of the new Tekno SCT410 2.0 short course truck. In this video, we'll be taking you step by step through the build process of this highly anticipated new SCT. Before we get to the actual build, we're going to take a look at page 2 of the manual. This page helps you understand Tekno's build legend, as well as outlines all the tools and support gear you'll need to complete the build. Okay, time to get started. Our first step is to open the bag of fluids. We'll need those right away during the build. On to bag A. It's a good idea to open and organize all the parts in each bag step to make the build experience as easy as possible. The first item on the build process is the center differential. Don't be light on the grease on these O-rings. They're used to seal the diff and help keep the fluid from leaking out. I like to use a 7mm wheel wrench to help push the shim down and seat the O-ring. Racer tip. The pinhole is in line with the outdrive slot. Keep this in mind when installing the diff pin. I like to use a little black grease to help keep this gear in place. Fill the diff up to just above the satellite gears with the 15,000 K fluid. Set the diff aside to let any air bubbles rise to the top. Set the gasket in place and tap down to make sure it is completely flat. It's also a good idea to make sure the holes in the gasket line up with those in the gear. Now that the fluid has settled, refill the diff until the fluid is just above the satellite gears, then mate the two diff halves together. Here's another racer tip. While it's okay to use a power drill throughout the build, it's best to set it on one of the softest settings. This will, in most cases, push the screw to about 90%. Then hand tighten the rest of the way. This ensures a tight screw fit without stripping the plastic. I also typically write the fluid weight on the diff so I have a base setting during rebuilds. Bag B contains the front and rear differentials. Since the builds are very similar to the center diff, we're going to use those same steps but breeze through here a bit faster. Except for the fluids used, the front and rear differentials are built exactly the same. Fill the front dip with 15K fluid, the rear with 10K fluid. After filling, make sure you keep them separated. You definitely don't want to mix them up. Tekno includes a pair of 0.1mm shims for the diff. I suggest test fitting first to see if there is any side-to-side play. Ours didn't have any, so no shims were needed. I use a liberal amount of Cow RC's udder butter to the gears to help keep wear to a minimum. It's waterproof and also reduces drivetrain sounds. Bag D is the same as Bag C, well, except for it's for the rear differential. When tightening down the outdrive cups, make sure you leave a very minute amount of play. The rear anti-roll bar was a pain because we didn't know the trick. If you skip ahead to the front bar, page 10, you'll see our new and improved installation trick. Match the end of the roll bar ball to the end of the bar itself. These Teflon-coated pliers are great for installing aluminum parts. The Teflon reduces the risk of damaging the part. Link in the description. The droop screws are a unique screw. They have an adjustment hole at each end. Make sure you install them through the bottom of the suspension arm. The D-arm mount was a little tricky to install. You need to flex both hinge pins out and get the mount to engage, then press firmly in place. This screw is only temporary. It's used to keep everything in place during the rest of the assembly. Huge kudos to Tekno for using this type of hinge pin assembly. No one likes E-clips, ever, for anything. However, installing these two shims might make you mental. It's a test of patience, so just take your time and it'll all be okay. No one likes building turnbuckles either. To make this chore a bit less painful, I like to use chapstick on each end of the rods to allow them to feed easier into the plastic. Tekno uses two different size pivot balls in this step, a short one and a tall one. The short one goes into the curved rod end, the tall one goes into the straight rod end. Pay attention to the direction of your turnbuckles when installing. The straight rod end should be to the inside of your truck. Here's that anti-roll bar trick. Lock the first capture piece in place. since we know where it's supposed to go now. Then install the bar. The second capture piece will now fall right into place. Don't worry about how far you've installed the droop screws. We'll set that correctly after the build is done. And your front clip is done. Man, Tekno knows how to design a stout assembly. There are some directional parts in this step, the steering and caster blocks. Make sure you match them up prior to assembly. There are two lengths of kingpins, short and long. The short ones go on the top, the long ones go on the bottom. Also note the flat spot on the head. That should face the inside of the truck. This step is a breeze. Thankfully, no shims. Just make sure you're installing the left assembly on the left, the right assembly on the right. And poof, front camber links done. I wish it was that easy. Short and long pivot balls again, but since both rod ends are straight, you just need to make sure they correlate with the notches in the turnbuckle rod. Compress the servo saver spring a few times to get it to set prior to installation. If you have one, a 17mm wrench will make this step super easy. If not, well, it won't be. Follow the tightening instructions, all the way in to full turns out. Make sure the screw is tight but doesn't bind the movement. This screw is kind of odd, but a much better alternative than previous versions. Press in, and while grabbing gently with pliers, pull all the way through. Because they kept falling out, we're holding off installing the upper and lower 6x10 bearings in the steering until later. Okay, time for those 6x10 steering bearings. This upper tower support was giving me fits, so I had to find a workaround to install. Made it to the steering support and fit together as an assembly as shown. With some systematic screw installation, it all goes together correctly. That is one beefy assembly. While we should probably be using a long 550 size brushless motor, I had this one lying around from a different project that never got done. It's a 4600 kV Castle motor that should be a bullet on 2S. Here's a good look at that new motor mount system. While we like the idea of its ease of use, changing the pinion on the fly is not going to be so easy. Guess we'll find out when we hit the track. This little guy required some manipulation with the pliers to get it to cooperate. Just make sure it sits level before installation. I'm following Tekno's pinion recommendation, a 15 tooth for larger tracks. Beast mode servo engaged. I'm dropping the MKS HBL 550 into this truck. There are certainly a lot of screws that hold these side guards and ESC tray in place. The tray is huge and will easily accept even the biggest of ESCs. Stop your build here. You'll need to feed the ESC and servo wire through the channel and into the receiver box prior to installing all the side guard screws. I didn't and had to take them all back out. Forward ahead a tick and see how it goes prior to your installation. Yep, here's where I found the issue. Thankfully, it wasn't all that hard to rectify. And the completed setup. Love Tekno's updated wire routing system. Well done. I used the CompetitionX ball cup tool for this step. Unfortunately, it doesn't work with the larger ball cups. Yet. Well done on the front end of the SCT410 2.0. Whew, it's a workout, but it's beginning to look so good. Let's finish up the rear of the truck. Make sure you seat that O-ring all the way down into the outdrive. Install these 4 screws, but don't tighten them all the way down just yet. Once you get this guard in place, you can install the last 2 screws and tighten down the original 4. There's a pin in the rear clip that keys to a hole in the chassis. You'll want to wiggle the clip around until the 2 mate. There's certainly an order to installing all of these screws. I found this to be the best solution. Some manufacturers do the shocks up front. Tekno does the shocks last. I'm not quite sure which one I like the best. Other than the length and fluid, the front and rear shocks are the same. Building one for you to see, then breezing through the other 3. Again, thank you Tekno for bringing your 1/8 scale piston mounting solution over to your 1/10 scale cars. Hashtag no eclipse. Racer tip: building the lower cartridge like this, instead of how the manual shows, ensures the blue O-rings stay in pristine condition during assembly. Fill the shock with fluid, pump the shaft a few times, and then set it aside to let the bubbles work their way to the top. These little O-rings are only fun if you install them as shown. Any other way and you'll be making up some new 4-letter words. Make sure you seat the O-ring completely into the cap. Fill the shock to the top, add a couple more drops into the lid, and mate the two together. Slowly compress and install the bleeder screw. Then clean off any excess oil. Pump the shock a few times, manual says 20 times, remove the screw and rebleed. To install the shock collar, you'll need to remove the boot. I also waited to install this so a little fluid would be on the shock body, making it easier to screw on. To help keep it from loosening up during use, the chrome screw is reverse rotation and should be installed on the right side of the truck. I don't usually tighten up the nut on top until the lower shock screws are done first. Again, we're going to power through the rear shocks, since you should be familiar with these steps already. The rear chrome shock screw goes on the left side of the truck. Okay, almost done. Some final steps and we'll have ourselves a functional SCT410 2.0. Depending on what shell you use, the body mounting locations might be different. Looking at the design, I kind of feel like this rear bumper has a different purpose to it. We have to thank Proline for the tires and body for this build. I'll be rolling on whole shots for the first run. Man, I haven't run these tires in years. Okay, the SCT410 2.0 is impressive. Well laid out, monster-sized parts, and it looks like it can handle a ton of power. I'm pretty pumped to get it out to the track and see how she performs. I hope you enjoyed this build and got some great info from it. Please stay tuned to the channel by subscribing and hitting that bell icon to be notified of future videos. We've got some serious fun ahead of us. Thanks for watching.